Tonight, I can report to the American people and to the world that the United States has conducted an operation that killed Osama bin Laden.
Where we continue to follow the capture and killing of Osama bin Laden now.
Those are just some of the scenes overnight as thousands of Americans gathered in celebration of Osama bin Laden's death.
Former Navy SEAL Rob O'Neill says he has thought about the mission every day since that May Day in 2011.
For multiple conversations you had with Rob O'Neill over the past year and a half, how'd you get
access? And you described that his head kind of exploded when you hit him.
I actually hit him 3 times because I shot him twice when he was standing and once on the ground.
That is the fucking American badass right there.
We are not going for fame and we are not going for bravado. We are going for the single mom who dropped her kids off at elementary school on a Tuesday morning, and then 45 minutes later she jumped to her death out of a skyscraper.
If you need help, hang up and then dial your operator.
I'm Rob O'Neill, and this is the Operator Podcast.
Welcome back. This is going to be a solo episode, and unfortunately, probably going to be a short one. The Operator Podcast. As you can tell from my voice, I'm a little bit hoarse, probably from hollering at you on social media or whatever the hell. Could be from a lot of things, but travel, whatnot. But the voice is going away, and I don't have a wonderful guest, just myself, so you're going to need to put up with me as it is, just to give you my thoughts on a couple things. Here at the Operator Podcast, I think this is episode 40. I'm calling it episode 140. I'm calling this episode 140 because if you missed the last 2 episodes, I interviewed my teammate, former Navy SEAL Scott Padgett. If you haven't listened to it, I highly recommend going back and listening to it. It's a great conversation with no animosity, no conspiracy theories, just a couple of dudes talking to each other. I re-listened to it. It's funny. When I first met Scott Padgett, before I met him, a guy that worked with him for a few years said, yeah, this guy's going to come in and he speaks a different language, but it's still English. He just says it and says stuff in different mannerisms, and his face moves in different ways. And within 3 days, you'll be speaking the language the same. And I noticed as the interview went on with Scott, I started to talk like him a little bit. Again, he used to say stuff like, going to go over to Dev and get on the big mish. I'm going to go to the right and tight and get my Sammy on, stuff like that. And it starts to make sense. But that was episodes, I want to say 138, 139, worth checking out. And they're not current events, which can be fun, which can be annoying. A lot of stuff going on now, if you haven't noticed. But this is just old school stuff, so it's going to be there. I'd recommend going to check them out. I probably won't be doing a podcast next week. I definitely won't. I mentioned a while back that I'm going to Mexico again to do Ibogaine. We had some snafus in travel. I wasn't able to make it, but I am going to go now this week, and I'm looking forward to it. The way it works in Mexico, I've talked about Ibogaine before. It's not a psychedelic. It's a plant-based medicine that's older than hell, and you've probably, if you listen to this podcast, you've heard me talk about it. Other podcasts have talked about it. A lot of veterans have done Ibogaine, and it really helps with everything that you can think of. A lot of the social media spats could be dissolved over a week trip with Ibogaine and Reiki massage and stuff like that. But it's good for everybody. It heals your mind, heals your soul and body, and you get to see different stuff about yourself. So I'm really excited to go. Hopefully it heals your voice, because I sound like I'm speaking through a dive sock right now, but we're going to pull through. Like I said, this won't be a long episode of The Operator, but we're going to get through it. I don't like getting political. This isn't political at all, but we lost Aussie Osborne, as everyone knows. What a shame. He was diagnosed with Parkinson's many years ago, and he was surrounded by family, and he actually gave his farewell tour, I want to say a couple weeks ago? But it was pretty cool. A young up-and-comer named Youngblood did a cover for him there. And this dude's the next one, man. This guy's badass. If you don't follow Youngblood, and I've never met the guy. I just started listening to him. He's a badass. But he did a cover for Ozzy, and he was in Ozzy's video where Aussie Osborne and Sharon Osbourne actually ran Youngblood over in their cars. They were driving, and I think something like Sharon said, he just ran over Youngblood, and Aussie said, never heard of him, back over him. Something like that. Pretty funny. But so Aussie died. And I was actually thinking it's we obviously all come to an end. But, we lost Lemmy from Motorhead a couple years ago to 2015. We lost Lemmy, and we lost Ozzy this week. And they used to say Lemmy is God. And they used to call Ozzy the Prince of Darkness. And I'm excited to go to the other side here next week on my journey, because if Lemmy is God and Ozzy's the Prince of Darkness, there's going to be a whole shakeup in management as far as eternity goes. I'm obviously in jest. I'm kidding. I don't believe that, but I do believe that suicide bombers now should reconsider, because if Lemmy and Ozzy are in heaven, there's no virgins left. Like, you blow yourself up for Allah, you might get a mansion with 72 rooms, but there's no virgins left, so you might get a 72 rooms full of whores or just empty rooms. But that's my thoughts on that. Obviously in jest, God rest his soul. We're all gonna see what happens on the other side. So it seems like there's been fitting tributes to Ozzy, and they're going to continue, hopefully, and it's good to see that too. And it seems like even Ozzy, the guy I mentioned, Youngblood, he was given a necklace with a cross on it from Ozzy, and I think Ozzy, obviously in the 70s, when he's out there doing lines of ants by the pool and slurping up Motley Crue's pee. He was a little different in the 70s when he, chewing off heads of bats and stuff like that. Part of the act, got to sell records, man. You got to, even nowadays, the conspiracy theories, a lot of people say what they need to do to get the ratings, to get the eyes on. Back in the 70s, they didn't say it like this, but you got to get the click somehow. And I think that was part of Ozzy's persona, his act. I didn't meet him, but you got to admit he seemed like a guy with a pretty big heart. His family seems great. I love the Osbornes. So anyway, rest in peace, Ozzy. More current events too. Hunter Biden's out there, man. What do you think about that? Hey, if you haven't seen, you've seen. But I don't know what to think about that. He's out there tearing it up. He's out there just throwing F-bombs around. And look, I'm not an angel and I'm not a spit-polished politician. I got into the limelight for shooting people, so it's not like I'm an angel. I've had my share of ups and downs as well. But to get on there dropping an F-bomb every other word, saying that you're clean and sober, yet explaining how to make crack and how it really doesn't affect the way that you act. You could just do crack allegedly and just be fine. It doesn't change the way you act, even though your dead brother's wife is your side piece. It's just out there taking the high road. You know what else is funky too that kind of bothers me is he's defending it. It doesn't bother me that he's defending his dad. He should defend his dad, and everyone should defend their dad. But when he says my dad spent 52 years of his life as a public servant. Can we all agree that politicians just stop referring to themselves as fucking public servants? I'm a public servant who picks stocks better than Warren Buffett for some reason. You're not a public servant. You're a politician. And I'm not going to get into the Biden family. I don't want to get into that at all. I don't feel like trashing another family at all. But I mean, if you look at the interview and see that I've seen normal pupils before, and I couldn't help but think maybe Hunter snuck a few nose beers before that first podcast. But he's out there throwing bombs, though. Is he doing what politicians do, like gearing up for a run, or just saying stuff that's not quite true, or just write out lies, or is he exposing what actually happens? Like he said, the cocaine he said, why would I bring cocaine into the West Wing and put it in a lockbox? He kind of even hinted at, I think, something along the lines of, it wasn't my cocaine, but I know whose it was type shit. That's interesting. How is the Democrat Party going to respond to Hunter Biden if he is telling the truth? He's throwing a lot of bombs out there. A lot of people end up committing suicide on PTs out there on a run and end up shooting yourself in the back of the head twice and then hanging yourself from a tree. It'll be interesting to see, because what if he is telling the truth? Democrats are in a world of pain right now. I think. Well, before we get into that too, I'm assuming you saw the debate between Donald Trump and Joe Biden before the coup, the Democrats' second coup. That they first one was unsuccessful, second one was successful. First one obviously being the Russiagate. I don't think we should talk about that today. There's plenty going around about that. I've got theories on that. I don't have any proof, so I'm not going to get into it. But before that debate, Hunter's saying, yeah, well, my dad's 81 years old and he's flying all over the world and the doctor gave him Ambien. Now, my three issues with that are, I don't care who you are. I don't care how young and fit you are. You should not take an Ambien before getting on stage. Getting on stage impaired is not a good idea. And if your name is Sleepy Joe and you're about to debate the guy who named you that, you probably shouldn't give him Ambien. And also, the president's doctor, see, they claim it's a HIPAA violation to tell you the president's medical status or whatever, and they've done it with Biden's past. But as the president of the United States, I think by law you're required, because you're running the country, the commander in chief, you're the president of the United States, and the people need to know what medications you're on. And they do release that usually, but Ambien's not on the list. I mean, are they still just trying to cover up the fact that Joe Biden's mind was tapioca at that point, or did he take Ambien? See, I've seen Ambien do messed up stuff too, and it does. I've had effects of Ambien myself, where you think you can take an Ambien, part of your routine, you skip something and you're like, well, I can beat it, and then all of a sudden you're trying to fry eggs in your car. What we used to do, and again, I'm losing my voice, so I'm not going to be too long here today. What we used to do when we would go to Afghanistan or Iraq overseas is we take off from Virginia Beach, fly to Ramstein. That's about a 9-hour flight, I think. And if I'm wrong, I'm sure another podcast will call me a liar. It's whatever. You fly to Germany, but as soon as you take off, you take your Ambien and you want to sleep most of the way. And we would take a C-17, and it was nice because you could roll out your foamers and we set up your hammocks or whatever. It was actually quite pleasant. Take an Ambien. Some guys just sneak a couple shots of whiskey, get in your hammock, put on your headphones. Actually, a nice flight, nice sleep. But what some people don't know is on those big birds like that, when you take off, within the first 20 minutes, you refuel. So like a KC-135 will meet you in the air, and you're in the back of a C-17, and you got to refuel. And we used to take our Ambien before we refueled, and then we learned the hard way not to, because we would also do the same thing out of Ramstein. Take off, refuel, go to Iraq, or take off, refuel, go to Afghanistan. So one time we were in Ramstein, we took off, everyone took Ambien, but the refueler malfunctioned, something malfunctioned, and we had to turn around. So guys are already hopped up on Ambien. We land back at Ramstein, got like a 4-hour layover. So you got to deplane while whatever the Air Force does. And then you go back into the terminal, and talk about a shit show. I'm talking guys walking around with slippers and a toothbrush in their mouth, wearing upside down sunglasses, trying to get an egg sandwich out of the vending machine, things like that. But Ambien, I love Ambien. I think it's great. I love it. But it's one of those things where you want to be horizontal when you take it. You want to make sure you got a solid, for me, it's a solid 5 hours, or you can start acting funky. And sometimes that can make headlines. Not getting into that today, but anyway, it wasn't on his list. If someone's calling you Sleepy Joe, don't take it before the debate. That's his excuse. Are they going to keep making excuses, you think? Or are they going to finally say, okay, look, some of this shit's legit. You got us. Like with this, with all this new stuff coming out with DNI, Tulsi Gabbard, and the Russia hoax, and the meeting where the the previous intel chiefs told the president that, hey, there's nothing there. There is no Russian interference. And then they went with the story anyway, and now we're finding out that, again, not going to talk about that today, but I begs the question, when they were all at George H.W. Bush's funeral, and every former president, first family, some heads of state were handed a letter, except Donald Trump. I wonder what that letter said. Wouldn't that be cool? Why are so many documents classified from you, the voter? I know that we've grown up getting used to, well, that's classified. Bullshit. Not everything's classified. And it shouldn't be. The problem is we're so used to being told what to do that we forget that they work for us. I mean, the difference between a conspiracy theory and the truth is time, right? Look at pre-COVID and post-COVID, how we were told what to do. Look at 9/12/01, the Patriot Act. Yes, we're on board because they had us afraid, and if they can keep you afraid or keep you at war, slowly you'll start giving them bits of your liberty. The Patriot Act's bullshit. It gave them reason to spy on us. COVID, vaccine mandates. What? I heard a story today. I got to look it up. Where the vaccines killed people. That's not a lie. That's the truth. There was a woman talking about how she her bones became brittle and she lost something like 18 teeth because of the vaccine. And we all bought it. We all locked ourselves. I mean, it was fun at first. Tiger King, booze, whatever else, and we bought it. And the government did it to us. This country was started because of a 2% tax on tea. Income tax is unconstitutional. Property tax is the biggest damn scam in the world. Look at all the taxes, and we just buy it. Classified documents. Why are they classified from us? You can't do that. No, we go with it. So, and why was Hunter Biden picking on George Clooney? I mean, he's an actor, but he's also, he's a brand, man, and he's powerful, and he's got the money to put out ads in the New York Times to start a coup. So, but then Hunter's going after him too. I don't know, man. I mean, and myself included, there's certain people I think you just don't want to go after. I don't have a problem with George Clooney personally. Yeah, he leans left. That's fine. I don't give a shit. I don't let politics affect the way I think about people. I really don't. I have some very liberal, and there's a difference between liberal and leftist. I have some very liberal friends. Not a lot of leftist friends. I'm sure I have a couple. But I don't think I want to agree with everyone on everything anyway. And I think you should be able to have a debate. It's just me. And same with the comedy stuff. Like, I can totally turn politics off. And I respect a joke not because of the irony of the punchline, against the base of what's going on. It's because somebody thought to say that. Like Shane Gillis's Navy SEAL joke, and obviously it's a joke. He was in the Navy. Shane Gillis, to me, is probably the funniest man on the planet. And he was the Navy guy. And his girlfriend used to date a SEAL. So have you heard the joke where he says, to me, who's pussies? Navy SEALs. Creeping around at night on night vision. Those are pussies. You know who's brave? Al-Qaeda. And he tells the joke about, they're brave because they go out there throwing rocks at tanks with their boys, wearing flip-flops. And he's like, they had one set of monkey bars, one set, and they filmed themselves doing it. And then they showed it to the world like, not bad. And obviously he doesn't have any animosity towards Navy SEALs. That's just funny. And when someone makes a joke about Barack Obama that's funny, it's funny. About Donald Trump, if it's funny, it's funny. And it's just because someone thought of it. If you're creative enough to think of a joke and be creative, that's good. Stephen Colbert got fired, and that's I think he's funny. He got a little Trump derangement syndrome during the whole vaccine thing with that stupid dance he did, that was really dumb. But I remember him on Comedy Central when he was on with Stephen Colbert, and that was my phone. I just mentioned Al Qaeda, and I thought maybe they just hopped in the studio. But he used to do skits before Stephen Colbert was really famous, before Steve Carell was really famous. My God, those guys they're still funny as shit. And I know you don't get a job like the Tonight Show or the Late Show without being extremely talented. I think he's got wrapped up in the politics. And again, that's because he had so much hate for someone, he just stopped with the humor. And like Jimmy Kimmel at the Man Show, Jesus. That guy was so quick-witted, still is. He's a little, is it the atmosphere? I don't know. I think Jon Stewart's awesome. I think Jon Stewart's like tier 1 quality debate, but also tier 1 quality comedy. Smart dude, funny dude. And when he makes ridiculous jokes, I don't give a shit who it's about. That's a funny guy. Don't hate me. I like Joy Behar. I like Whoopi Goldberg. Because they can be funny. I mean, they get ridiculous, but whatever. They're just funny. So, could be me. I don't know. If you hate me for saying that, doesn't matter. But, yeah, so, what do you think about the Late Show? I mean, not only did they cancel Stephen Colbert, they canceled the entire Late Show. They started the Late Show to steal David Letterman from NBC, because there was that thing where who's going to take over for Johnny Carson? It should be David Letterman, because he was on after the Tonight Show, but they gave it to Jay Leno, and then CBS started the Late Show, and then it was a business decision, not a political decision, to get rid of Stephen Colbert, but he took down the entire Late Show, David Letterman's show, because he couldn't get over the politics. And if you're trying to have a conversation, if you're trying to have a fun conversation with someone, I'd take the politics out, and certainly don't start screaming. That could be why my voice is gone, because I called my mom and we started talking politics, and she's a crazy person. And so I was yelling at her. That's not true at all. I made that up. But yeah, I mean, picking on George Clooney, I don't care. George Clooney's a great actor. He makes some good movies. I haven't seen the latest one. Like, I loved Ocean's 11, but the newest one, what is it called, with Brad Pitt again? I don't know. It's something, but it seemed like an Ocean's 11 thing to me. I didn't watch it. But anyway, yeah, Ozzy and Lemmy are gone, and the Late Show's gone, and what's going to happen with Hunter, I guess it remains to be seen. But yeah, I mean, the point I guess I'm making is it's okay to keep morale high, and if someone tells a joke that's funny, it's okay to laugh, and don't just cancel someone because they tell you something you don't like. And usually it's not even a lie or a conspiracy theory that gets you in trouble. It's telling the truth. But I think, as you can probably tell, the voice is going. So I'm gonna need to keep it quick. The two things I wanted to bring up, because all of our lives were so affected by 9/11, and then to see what's going on now, especially in the political system, kind of makes you wonder, like, what's going on in New York, especially what's going on with the race for mayor, and then up in Minnesota. The thing in Minnesota I want to touch on first, because there's a dude up there that Omar Fatah. I'm probably saying that wrong, but I don't give a shit. I think he was born here, but he claims Somalia as his home because he's a Somali, 100% Somali. A lot of the Somalis are 100% Somali because I'm thinking a lot of their family trees don't have that many branches. It seems a little bit, you know what I'm saying? But he's going to be the next mayor of Minneapolis, and he's the Somali thing happened right around the Civil War that started in the early 90s in Somalia. Black Hawk Down, you remember? Excellent movie. Incredible mission, incredible bravery, incredible guys. Can't imagine that. What went on there. I just actually watched that movie the other day. It's one of the best war movies ever made. What is the best war movie ever made, by the way? What do you think? There's some really good ones out there. I'm saying Private Ryan still, but boy, Black Hawk Down's right there. But right around then, we started bringing in, and if you do research, it was during the Clinton administration, they started bringing in refugees from Somalia. And if you do research, even the chat bots won't let you blame Bill Clinton for it. It's just an uptick in refugees as we open our borders, as we sneak people in at night. And they said because they're nomadic people, they nomaded their asses up to Minneapolis. and they can't decide if there's between 40,000 or 80,000 Somali refugees taking over Minnesota. Minnesota was the only state that Reagan didn't win in '84. That in the District of Columbia, imagine that. But the excuse is because of the Civil War. What was happening before the Civil War in the early '90s? Because the independence years were 1960 to 1969, when Somalia got independence in 1960 from. They merged with the former British Somaliland. They got it from Italy and whatnot. And they tried to build a democratic government, but if you can imagine, political instability and corruption were prevalent. And then in 1969, there was a coup d'etat, if you can imagine that, a coup. And they established a socialist military government. I'm sure it was actually democratic socialism, which ends up fine. And, political suppression, killing your opponents, attempt they try to modernize it through Soviet-style socialism, turned into violence. If you can imagine socialism turning into violence. It sounded good on paper. And then in 1977, they went to war with Ethiopia, and they held a large Somali population, but they got crushed pretty bad. And then economic decline by the late 80s. They were facing severe economic decline, drought, famine, and then the government mismanagement and collapse due to what? Socialism. And then the whole thing, human rights abuses, the whole Mohammed Farah deed. We started bringing Somalis over here. Somehow, can't blame the Clintons, obviously. Can't blame socialism, obviously. It did give us Ilhan Omar, which is awesome. So we have Al-Shabaab already in Congress. But he's going to be the next mayor of Minneapolis. And that's frustrating, too, because they're having so many issues in Minneapolis, St. Paul right now with Somali gangs. And these aren't like our gangs where they hang out in their hood and then they run drugs and control it. They'll hang out in one spot but commit different crimes like credit card fraud and shit like that in other places, violence. Like last spring they went to I think it was a high school basketball game, a Somali gang, and they beat up a dude on the bench with a pipe or a crowbar. And then last spring at University of Minnesota there was a shooting at graduation. So but I'm sure, and they're calling Somalia their home country, but I'm sure they take over Minnesota. That's going to be just fine. And then you got Zohran Mamdani, who's in New York, and he just won the Democratic primary, which is crazy to think he's your best option. Both Omar Fatah and Mamdani are Islamists. They're socialists. They want to bring the communal grocery stores in and all that stuff. Like, again, it sounds good, but the road to hell, you know what it's paved with. But Mamdani is weird because you wouldn't think that, like, he's a straight-up Antifada guy, right? Like, yes, Hamas, pro-Hamas, which means pro-Al-Shabaab, which means pro-Al-Qaeda, which is weird in Manhattan, you would think. But the left is so far out of control and they hate Donald Trump so much they see past that, which is weird. But, I'm almost to the point, too. Hey, you reap what you sow. You elect this guy, see what happens, New York. See what happens, Minneapolis. You've already seen what happens in Minneapolis. But that Zohran Mamdani, he looks up to his father, Mahmoud Mamdani. And he got a book. He wrote this in his book, a 2004 book, Good Muslim, Bad Muslim, America, the Cold War, and the Roots of Terror. And he's quoted as saying, suicide bombing needs to be understood as a feature of modern political violence rather than stigmatized as a mark of barbarism. We need to recognize the suicide bomber first and foremost as a category of soldier, not as barbarism. Okay. Strapping a fucking bomb to yourself and blowing yourself up to kill the infidel, knowing you're going to get 72 virgins in heaven, is a fucking barbarian. Am I wrong? But so that was his dad, Mahmoud Mamdani, who was a professor at, guess where? Columbia. God damn, it's crazy when shit starts coming together, isn't it? It's almost like if you told the truth, people would open their fucking eyes, but they're not going to. I have so much more to say on this. I've taken copious notes, but you can tell I'm just losing this voice. So I do need to go off to Mexico. I'm going to have a hell of a good podcast on the way back. I've lined up some really good guests too. I'm losing it now. And I'm also losing my voice now. So just remember, when you start to sound like this, get yourself some throat lozenges, and you're never out of the fight.